How you doing there, Phil? How's your week?
Dan, I'm on the up. I've been down. I've been up. We've discussed with some of the patrons. Shout out to the people that have sent some well wishes. Shout out to Audrey who sent a lovely message on the website. Appreciate you guys. Appreciate your support. These tough times. Sometimes we remember why we started Mental Wellness Mondays.
No, I hear it. Well, resilience. Whenever they describe Zimbabweans, they always mention that. A resilient people.
I love how you're defaulting to what is actually a very problematic coping mechanism that my therapist says we should avoid.
Resilience.
Yeah, you shouldn't rush to what are viewed as traditionally strong or resilient tropes. You should just accept things and be like, I'm not okay. I need some help. How do I get that help? How do I get back to it? You shouldn't have to be resilient.
No,
you build your resilience by a daily practices and systems.
My method of dealing with problems is to pretend nothing's happening, push down any sad feelings I have deep down, smile, make a joke. It's worked for me so far. What could go wrong?
What's your life insurance policy looking like? Because it's going to come in handy in about 10 years.
Life insurance. Phil, you funny guy. Anyway, it is good to be back on the podcast. We have a lot to talk about. There's a lot of things to cover, and we don't have a lot of time to cover it in, As we've always said on this podcast, we're here for a good time, not a long time, so let's do the damn thing. What it is, big man, you alive and kicking.
Wait, I don't get that reference. Who's that?
One or two people will get it. It's fine. I don't want to... Never mind. Let's start the show. Phil. Are you
good to go?
Are you
good to go?
Sound a big thing, them.
Get mad now.
Let me hear a drum play.
Right. Welcome there. Welcome to another episode of your favorite podcast. This is Two Broke Twimbos. My name's Danny That Guy, a.k.a. Danos the Mad Titan, a.k.a. Denford Wekmaraini, a.k.a. Denimbi My Life Your Entertainment, a.k.a. Let me have the guts to approach former First Lady and say, hi there, how you doing? A.k.a. Akuna Mumwendi Danmu.
Ooh. That's right. He's the unmistakable, the unshakable, the infallible, the all might, Lorasamapamable. Phil Chad, aka Flynn Floss, the big boss, baby, aka Feeds Up, aka Sex and Glove, aka Filthy Phil, aka DJ Mkara, and of course, Shamari Tingero Drink. We're back. Hello. It is still winter. It wasn't winter yesterday, but it's winter today.
Yeah, it's been on and off, but it's been extremely cold sometimes, I will say. I have to say, look, if you don't want to have someone assisting you with the warmth, look, I'm sorry, it's a tough time. Tough time
it's
to be.
The worst. Electric blankets don't work when there's no electricity. It's a tough situation.
Tough time to be strong and independent, but we move. We got a lot of things to address, but we like to start the show by celebrating Africans, Zimbabweans who are doing big things around the globe. There's a couple of people I wanted to mention before we talk about the mess. Let's start on a positive note, shall we? Now, last year, maybe 2 years ago? No, last year, I was introduced to a lady by the name of Shelley Bent. I understood that she was going to be Zimbabwe's representative at a beauty pageant that is known as the Universal Woman. And the idea behind Universal Woman was, no, all these beauty pageants are about, air quotes, what is supposed to be the perfect representation of a woman. You must not have kids, you must not be married, you must be blah, 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 all these things. Universal Woman is more like, no, I mean, it's a beauty pageant for people without too many criteria or like whatever behind it, right? And it's become a bit of a big thing globally. So Zimbabwe's representative is someone by the name of Shelley Bent. And she was out there at Universal Woman. And as of news yesterday, She made it to the top 12. She's the only African to have made it to the top 12. Currently, it's being held in India. So the top 12 currently has Cuba, Chile, Bolivia, Vietnam, Colombia, Arabia. I'm surprised Arabia is counted as a country. I'm very confused. Maybe that's Saudi Arabia? Argentina, Spain, Brazil, Estonia, and the Philippines.
Arabia?
Look, maybe it's the news outlet that I'm reading this from.
Arabian Nights. With the 40 thieves involved as well?
We're focusing on the wrong thing here, Phil. Let's celebrate Shelley Bent representing Zimbabwe, the only African.
Her delegation, Jafar?
the only African to have made it to the top 12. Maybe she can even bring it home. Who knows? With what's going on in cricket, it would be nice to have something to celebrate. But yeah. Oh no, my network has just dropped for a second. Let's give it a moment. And we are back.
You see, this is what happens when you use smart biz, Dan. This is what happens.
Woo! So congratulations to Shelley Bent. Someone else to quickly mention, an alum of the podcast, Mr. Leroy Gopal. Mr. Leroy Gopal is on Netflix right now. A film has just come out. It's called Marked on Netflix, if you want to check it out. It is featuring Zimbabwe's very own Leroy Gopal in it. He plays the role of Tatenda. If you are unfamiliar with Leroy Gopal, think of Yellow Card, one of Zimbabwe's classic movies. And also you can scroll up to listen to his episode on this particular podcast.
On what? On what?
On this podcast. So shout out to Leroy Gopal and getting another credit on his notch on Netflix. So so Phil, that counts some celebration of some Zimbabweans, and we can get to the mess right now. Why were we not here last week, Phil?
I just wasn't okay. I was just tired. Like I wasn't up to it. I was not doing too great, Just didn't have the spoons. As my therapist said, I didn't have the spoons. And then you were also late. And then because you were late, my spoons finished. So I was like, I don't lie, bro. It was already going to be a tough episode, but the fact that you were busy as well, I was just like, So yeah. And I'm speaking in a somber tone because hopefully the listeners will forgive me. Please forgive me.
No, I appreciate that the listeners understand, except for one who constantly wants to mention things on socials, but you know who I'm talking about. You know who I'm talking about.
The one with the flag.
Yes. Anyway, it's a whole other story for another time.
I was also like, trying to be that busy, that.
Anyway, it's okay. It's okay.
But these are Rambo right now.
Look, we do our best to get the podcast to you. If it doesn't come through, don't assume that we just kind of, let's not do it. Like we will have tried. You know what I'm saying? So give us the benefit of the doubt. We've been doing this for a long time. We are always trying every week to get you the podcast. That having been said, we'd like to extend our deepest apologies for having missed last week. I was at an event. I was late from the event. And then Phil was also like doing something else. And then you were on a call. And then you were not feeling well. We're just like, we tried. Then we thought like, can we do it on the weekend? But on the weekend, I had stuff going on. And we're just like, we'll just do it over the next week. It's fine. We tried our best. And here we are. So you get an episode this week. Hopefully we'll be back in next week and the week after that. And we'll aim to have some measure of consistency. But, it's not always easy. And we don't always have full control of our schedules. But still, thank you very much for your patience. And we appreciate it very much. Please don't, don't cast any spells on us or anything.
Don't judge me now. Well, if they do, we'll take them to court, Dan. We'll take them to court.
Wow. Look at that. You know what I'm saying? This is what we call a segue. We just dropped in a reference and then put it in and then bam, move on to the next story. This shows the professionals from those who are not professionals. We'll talk about some podcasters who are not professionals in a moment. That's called a throw forward, Phil. You know what I'm saying? Just to whet the appetite. Quick aside. When we say whet the appetite, the word is WHET. It doesn't mean to make wet or damp or moist. It means to sharpen. It's an old English word for sharpen. And you say whet the appetite. You are sharpening the appetite. Free fun fact for you today.
How did you find a woman? Once again.
It is a surprise to all, including the woman. I can see sometimes she looks like, You're lucky that,
Yeah.
I find something attractive about you because sometimes...
You caught it in a down spell. You caught it at that right time. You struck.
It's all about timing.
Enjoying and just like, I need a stable, man. I need stability.
It's all about timing. All right. So,
wait, before you continue, I actually got a funny story. So, one of the things I was trying to do is trying to get some sun. So I went to a coffee shop to, work in the sun, get some work done. I was actually having a good time. Bumped into someone we know.
Mm-hmm.
So here, the funny thing is, right, I went to the coffee shop so I could work and not be disturbed.
And then
So the person comes in, I say, what's up? We do a little 10-minute conversation. I'm like, I bet they might even hear this podcast. And I love this person. Like they're a homie for life, but they don't read the cues well. And it's always been a thing that we laugh about. So say what's up, we have a conversation, bet. I put the headphones on. I load up my playlist. Now, if you want me to focus, house, I'm in the zone. And to really make sure that they understand, I'm listening to music and I'm in the zone. I'm doing the, the head bob while you're working. You know what I mean? That's a social cue, right? I'm not tripping right then. That's a clear cue that, my man's is in the zone. The spreadsheets are open. He's doing what he needs to get done. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Every 5 minutes, taps me on the shoulder. You feel. Then one of the times she taps me on the shoulder, I think the third or fourth time, she's like, Phil, how's Dan? I saw his date. I'm like, she's actually quite funny. How did he bag her? And I'm like, that's his wife. They married. Wow. How did he pull it off? How did she come to Zim? I'm like, they live in Zim. They good. What? Wow. Yeah, I haven't seen him. I'm assuming because he's married and he's staying at home. Okay, cool. I was like, so she moved to Zim. I was like, I thought this conversation ended.
I think your depiction of this person's style of speaking is a bit unfair, Phil.
Uh-huh.
By the way, it's something that was pointed out to me, and I think it's something that you also do. Whenever I'm describing someone else speaking, I always use the most offensive accent and speech pattern, and I don't do it intentionally. It's just ingrained in me now.
No, to be fair, this actually kind of does sound like the person, but I'm also exaggerating so that you don't know who this person is. I don't want to throw people off the scent because my impersonation of this person is really spot on.
Anyway, look, it is what it. Hey, okay, guys. Look, I'm tired of being humble on y'all. Listen, sometimes I, make a fool of myself for the sake of the pod. And I know that, I'm not always 100% on point in terms of, self-presentation. But, I had some motion in these streets. You know what I'm saying? So
some motion.
Don't be surprised that I pulled a baddie. Do you know what I'm saying? It was always written in the stars. Anyone who knew what was up. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes you gotta understand that a man's got motion in it. Man's got motion.
And sometimes when you don't understand, you overstand. You know what I'm saying, my brother?
I gotta go outside because sometimes this motion was outstanding. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, this is something that came up in our Patreon group today, Phil. Today.
Front page news.
So I want our listeners who perhaps are not currently living in Zimbabwe to understand that this is a topic of conversation.
Count your blessings.
Yeah, look, this is a topic of conversation because it is one in this teapot country of ours, which we love dearly and we live in. But we also recognize that sometimes we due to circumstances beyond our or individual controls, there's certain things that we wish we could upgrade, including conversations. Let me break this story for you. So there's a Zimbabwean socialite. She goes by Enchantress Nate. I don't really know. I may have seen her in a place here and there, but I don't really know her like that. She was the front page of H Metro today because she was apparently or allegedly arrested, or at the very least being investigated for witchcraft. She was accused in court by some former friends of practicing witchcraft against those friends.
Did you have the details of what transpired? Or rather the alleged acts of witchcraft?
Allegedly, the witchcraft itself was various means and methods of causing their downfall. I did not look into the specific spells, Phil. I don't think it's
allegedly. All this is from the eyewitness testimony of a domestic worker, which was who she fired. A very credible witness.
And there were two people, according to the H Metro article, there were two people who are former friends who accused her, and part of what they're using as testimony is this domestic worker. So it's not as simple as saying it's just from the domestic worker. Also, Phil, you're ignoring the obvious evidence right in front of you. She goes by Enchantress. What you think that mean? Anyway, seems like a ridiculous story, right? So she's being accused of witchcraft. To me, what makes it a worthwhile discussion is the fact that she literally appeared in court, which was like, wait, is this actually a legal issue? It would not be a discussion for us. Someone said this person is practicing witchcraft, black magic, juju, ha ha ha. But no, you're literally in court on grounds of practicing witchcraft. So I was like, wait, hold on. Is that a thing? Now I do recall somewhere in the recesses of my mind that this is something that exists in the Zimbabwe legal code and criminal code. But our very friendly and resourceful advocate, our favorite advocate, posted helpfully on her X profile some relevant excerpts of the criminal code that outline several things, including the fact that witchcraft is something that's mentioned in Zimbabwean law and illegal to practice. In fact, Section 98 of the Criminal Law Codification and Reform Act states that it is a crime for any person to engage in practices they know are associated with witchcraft with the intent to cause harm. As you can imagine, this is obviously something very difficult to prove because intent is literally written into the code, and it's extremely difficult to prove intent. The law also makes it clear that simply speaking words isn't enough to be convicted. So just saying a spell is not enough.
Harry Potter fans can breathe a sigh of relief.
However, by the way, the code actually says witchcraft and wizardry, since you were going to mention that. So I'm reading this and I'm like, what? Are we serious as a nation? Fun fact, belief in witchcraft could be a mitigating factor. For example, if you do believe that you can harm someone and then you take certain steps of practicing, putting out charms and et cetera, that could be used as evidence because you firmly believed that it could, even if nothing happens out of it. Alternatively, if you cause harm to someone because you think that they're a witch or a wizard, it can also be taken into consideration during sentencing. Like, look, the assault happened, but, he thought she was a witch, so it's not so bad. Which is insane.
That will never be abused. That's a very fair.
And of course, ultimately, there's a lot of conversations about falsely accusing someone of a witch that will then also lead to. So if you're out here calling her a witch, then you might also face legal action. So to me, that's insane. I can't believe that this is a legal thing and it exists in legal discussions. But then I thought about it and I was like, she calls herself Enchantress. This tells you everything you need to know. Now, we were discussing this in the group, and it became pretty clear to me that there's a mix of beliefs in our Patreon group, with some people who firmly believe in unexplained occurrences and the occult, and people with powers to harm using witchcraft practices. And I thought it would be interesting, Phil. I'd love to hear your opinion. Do you think that there are some things that are just not explained by science?
Yeah, but I also do think a lot of healers practice things that have been proven by science. Practice of natural medicines, herbology, etc., that predate natural science are all part of the lineage. And what I was also discussing in the group, which I think you noticed, is there's a lot of things that we can't definitively say to a certain degree. There are people who, and I was also highlighting like where I'm from, where my family's from, there are people who are scared, dang near witless about these things because of what they've seen, what they've heard, what they've been brought up around. There are things that I've anecdotally seen or come across that have also scared me, right?
Seeing as someone who comes from Mutare there, you know?
Yeah, all jokes aside. So I do think there are things that can be explained. I do think the human brain also sometimes tries to find explanations with things that it can't really connect, and sometimes it's easier to assign things to the unexplained or the fanciful and so forth. So there is a lot of stuff like that. But I also do know a few people who are very smart, very educated, more believed, well-meaning, who have essentially become healers themselves. And I'm just like, wow, okay. And they've adopted a worldview and a world belief that was very foreign to me. But all this to say, I do think, and it's a bit sad to me that essentially what boils down to traditional African religion has been ostracized to such an extent where even what may be the benign or people trying to reconnect with their roots, whatever it may be, is classified as, for lack of a better term, witchcraft, when they are not trying to do anything malicious. And it's also very concerning that when things are not going well for you or things are not going well for people, whether with or without evidence, and even if that evidence may be flimsy or may not even be the cause of what's going on, people can assign malicious intent, not only malicious intent, but malicious results on someone. Like, yo, I didn't get that job offer. It's because Dan put a hex on me. I'm gonna, man, Dan, I hate you. Why would you do that to me? You know what I mean?
Okay, but if we put those instances aside, so you mentioned things that are literally just herbs that have been passed down over generations and science only caught up maybe later on, or the belief that the reason my life is not going forward is because of this hex or witchcraft or whatever. And I think there's also a whole broader conversation about the view of African traditional religion and all that. I think we'll get back to that in a second. But do you think that someone could put out charms or certain combinations of things and whatever, and it would directly lead to some sort of metaphysical, magical happening on someone?
I mean, yes. For lack of a better term, yes. I think like there's stuff that we can explain, there's stuff we can't explain. For example, chakra hunts, for example, like when it's a full moon, they charge their crystals, for example. But at a very surface level, granted, I'm no scientist, but if the moon is able to enact a gravitational pull and a radiation strong enough to affect the tides, there's a high likelihood it could affect stones, right? But we don't know. What I do know, and I used to joke about this with a friend, is, and I think we even discussed it on the podcast, we used to have a running joke where every time there was a full moon, we'd do an over-under about how many big head texts I would get from exes. But there was a period like for like a couple of years without fail, every time there was a full moon, bam, bam, bam. And I was like, this moon must be doing something to these women. You know what I mean? And that's just one, like a micro example of how I believe there are things that we don't fully understand or explain, or it might even be we imbue meaning into something and then that influences our actions. That could also be a very realistic thing. But what I've also found very interesting in my rudimentary understanding and knowledge of this is how there seem to be common themes, not only in fantasy, but in religion with regards to traditional African religion, Western religions, and sometimes even those religions didn't intersect until later in life. So the commonality of a water baptism, for example, that's fascinating to me. The commonality of mystical creatures like mermaids and various forms of gnomes / tokoloshis and etc. There's a commonality there that I find fascinating. I'm not ascribing any meaning to it, but I just do find it fascinating that there seem to be common themes in the fantasies surrounding magic and the unexplained and understood that haven't been said. So I try to approach these things or these discussions with a little bit of respect and reverence, because I've also met people, older people, who've tried to explain to me like traditional African religion, and I don't want to mention names. They've even been authors, and I think that conversation was had in confidence, so I don't want to mention them. But there's a respected author who's a professor, and we're just having a discussion about like colonialism, post-colonialism, the benefits of capitalism versus socialism, etc. And then they went onto a whole discussion about how traditional African religion was also linked to this, and how that was taken from us. And even if our oppressors, for example, didn't believe in it, they understood its importance to us and they used it against us. I think we've even had a patron on this podcast and in our group speak about how they have not had a chance to bury the bones of their loved ones because they're in the British Museum. Like stuff like that, I feel like it needs to be considered. So I say all that to say that even when we don't understand these things, or we may not even believe them, like there may be people who are Christians, there may be people who are Muslim who view this as something that's, for lack of a better term, not to be discussed or not to be explored because of their religious beliefs. I can understand that, but I also do feel like there needs to be a certain level of understanding and empathy. You don't obviously have to believe something you don't believe in or partake in something you're not comfortable with, but I do feel we need to be a little more understanding, especially when colonialism demonized some of these very benign and helpful practices that kept us alive.
I think, similar to what you said earlier, I think most things that we ascribe to witchcraft have either a scientific explanation or a perception explanation. But I also believe there's certain things that we just can't explain with the physical world. And I think it's also okay to leave room for I think it's so arrogant to think that you know everything. That I fully understand everything about the universe. Who are you, bro? So even if you may disagree with certain beliefs, surely leave room for there's probably so many things that I just don't have any way of understanding, and that's okay. So, I mean, my position is like, hey, I don't believe that most of the things that people say is witchcraft, but I am very willing to leave room in my beliefs that there's stuff that I just don't understand, and I'm not going to have the arrogance to sort of think some things which are unexplainable must be explained using the rules that exist now. Some things might be metaphysical and, more than what we know. Anyway.
Yeah, and that's the thing, because granted, I'm not to belabor this point, but I think one of the things that I've found interesting, and it's a discussion that I've had with someone before, someone who's a Christian, and I wasn't defending or advocating, nor was I against it, but I was just saying like a level of open-mindedness and understanding, because there's a lot of parallels on the surface level between Western religious practices and African traditional religious practices. It's just bad, as Kandoro would say, bad PR. Like, I gave the example of the water baptism, for example, or the example of some people believe that when your loved one dies, they go to heaven, but their spirit watches over you and their guardian angels, etc. That's a common Christian belief in the world, and they'll accept that. But the thought that your ancestors may be watching over you is removed. And I'm like, but isn't that the same thing? Just slightly different translation. You know what I mean? And that's what I do find fascinating, is how similar concepts, just with a slight deviation, it'll go from, yes, that's the accepted norm, to no, that's not right. But anyway, I think we've deviated from the. Where's the tea, then? More on the tea. So these baddies are going at each other. What's happening? Tell me about these baddies in court. Let's get back to the tea.
The thing is, I'm not from this world, but I know people from this world, Phil. You know, the world of the baddies. You know, the glam world. You know, so these are. I think. First of all, I know there's plenty of people who are looking at that cover article in H Metro, reading the headline, or like, still would. Second of all, I would say, I would caution rather, the nature of society looking up to certain people, regardless of whether said, air quotes, witchcraft was practiced, or whether you believe in it or not, or all of that, right? Regardless of that, the fact that you feel that you need to do that, assuming she did, assuming these allegations are true, I mean, doesn't it make you look at someone differently? Like the way someone positions themselves as an entrepreneur who, by God's grace and who, you know, through hard work and positioning themselves well, have been able to build and curate this amazing life for themselves. Look at my life, etc., etc., etc. Look, a valuable lesson for all of us who pay attention to social media. I've been thinking a lot about this recently because I don't know if you noticed, Phil, but my wife has decided to start making content.
Yes.
And, you know, as someone who's been in the public eye, you know, I thought like, listen, I think this stuff is great. I love it. But, you know, I would caution you about, you know, and I saw that, you know what, maybe I'm also being a hater. That sounds a bit haterish. So no, never mind. Screw that. I love the content you're making. It's funny. It's dope. I'm happy to throw in suggestions. I think it's relatable to a lot of people. But the back of my mind also thinks about just how toxic overall social media is. So yeah, I've been thinking about that a lot, you know, and I think this story came out at a time when I was thinking about the people who are popular on social media. I don't think are living as good. I mean, we kind of all know this intellectually, but it really like underlined the point that people that you think are living these glamorous lives aren't living as glamorous a life as you think that they are.
I think you're correct. I think just for the purposes of covering ourselves, we don't want to cast blanket aspersions on people.
Of course, yeah.
But I think it's also been well understood. I think even as intellectual people understand that Instagram or social media, to a general extent, it's not your life; it's a highlight reel.
Yes,
and it's like who's got the best highlights, because we don't know what's happening afterwards. But somehow people still seem to forget that to a certain degree. But I also do believe that what social media has done is amplified what's already existed. There have been many examples and there have been many autobiographies of successful people who had to sacrifice a lot in terms of not only just relationships, but in terms of their conscience, in terms of their moral standing, in terms of what they do. There was a recent example. I don't know if you know this player called Dominic Foxworth. So he used to be a head of the Players Union, and after he retired from playing American football, he went to Harvard Business School and then started working in the corporate world. And he states that I was literally in the corporate world for 6 months before I started losing sleep, because I realized I can't do this without you need to not have a conscience to be in finance. You need to not have a conscience to try rise to the level of CFO. Keep it in mind, this is a person who made millions of dollars beating the poop out of other grown men. And he drew the line at, I can't do this corporate life. So on all facets, whether it's legitimate money, whether it's illicit money, whatever it may be, people make the active decision that money isn't the most important thing, so I'm going to pursue it whatever it takes. If it means screwing over a business partner, it is what it is. If it means doing something that some people might deem shady or illicit or reprehensible, it is what it is. But at the end of the day, I'm getting into this luxury vehicle. So I think sadly, this is the state of economy, and it's a byproduct of what capitalism does, because capitalism rewards people with money. And the common phrase is "Fazamting." How many people do we know? No names mentioned, Dan. That we know this person's a cornball, But people are on their nuts because they have the monies.
Not even that. Even taking that a step further, this person has money, but the reasons they have this money, the reasons behind why they have this money are shady AF. And you know that. In fact, the money was probably stolen from your very pocket, but you celebrate them because they got money. Honestly, Phil, money is such a weird... It all rolls down to capitalism. Money is so weird, man.
Capitalism is the biggest religion in the world.
Yeah, maybe this is not for the podcast, but I was just thinking about some of the things that I have to work on, and working in media, Phil, includes things like PR.
Yeah,
and PR for sometimes I question like, yo, the PR that I'm doing here might be against my own self-interest. But do I want to pay rent? Or anyway, look, these are other conversations for just all I'm saying is, things are coming. Let's move on, Phil. Yeah, long story short, someone is in court for witchcraft, which is crazy to me. And
Dan said you'll still tap. That's what I heard.
Yeah, I wouldn't have even from the get-go, but for others, look. Another huge story. So look, Phil, we pride ourselves in being a socially responsible and well-researched podcast that is aware of nuances and is not really in any position to try and find controversial viral moments. That's not our goal. Our goal is to have good faith conversations with people. If we trend, let it be for the knowledge that was spat.
Exactly. Positive vibes over here. That's what we're about.
By contrast, there is a podcast in South A called called the Open Chats Podcast. It's hosted by Mto and Sino. And they're in trouble this week. Now, shout out to my wife. She's the one who put me onto the story. She actually sent me the links and was like, "Hey, maybe you guys want to talk about this on the pod." And I was completely unaware of the entire conversation when she sent the stuff and I started looking it up. I was like, "Oh snap! I can't believe this is a thing." Long story short, in this podcast, there's a particular clip. I don't have the clip. Do you want to play the clip there, Phil?
No, I'm not giving them a light of day.
Thank you. I didn't want to.
That one, I don't want to give the light of day.
Basically, in this clip, these guys say some stuff about colored people in South Africa. Some very like, honestly, disgusting stuff. The one dude, I don't know which one of the two says it, but one of them says, the thing about colored people in South Africa, they got mental issues, they're crazy, and they do incest. Which is an insanely wild statement to make about an entire ethnic group. Obviously, people are upset, but even I was surprised by the level of backlash that came from a podcast. There's obviously colored people in South Africa who are making responses, and the DA has gotten involved, and they've put out. Do you know when I knew these guys were cooked?
Every political party, the ANC just released a statement. Gayton McKenzie has released 2 statements because his first statement was dumb because it's Gayton.
Do you know how I knew they were cooked? When I Googled this to get like the information to talk about, my current source is from the Republic of South Africa's official website, gov.za. That's where this story is. And then I was like, man, these guys might be cooked.
Yeah. It's a hate crime.
These guys are literally they are part of the South African government's official policy discussions. What? Yo, may this kind of scrutiny never come upon our podcast, Phil.
I would like to think we said many a stupid thing in our days, but we're not that stupid.
Do you know what I was thinking about, Phil? We are not that stupid, but do you know how easy it is for live conversation, to just go a direction that you didn't mean it to go? Which is why I'm so glad this is an edited podcast. But even with editing, I don't think we've ever said anything. But even if we hadn't, surely at the very least, when the show is done and you're going through it, you're like, oh, snap. Can't believe that was said. Snip that out.
Yep. And it lives on the cutting room floor, never to be seen. But they were like, nah.
They were like,
They were
nah.
color grading that shit. They were like, no, switch to camera two. Yeah, let's go on the tight shot. Let's go to the tight.
It's like,
yeah.
sorry, can you say that again? We just want to make sure the mic's caught it. So anyway, just to underline, maybe you're sort of like, passively listening and you're kind of listening to these guys talking. These guys on a podcast said colored people in South Africa are crazy and they do incest. That's insane.
And then they eventually one was like, no, that's crazy. It was like, actually, you know what? Yeah, colored people are crazy. They probably do. Yeah. Like no. Okay.
There's been so many nuanced conversations coming out of this, and obviously this podcast is not here to say here's why they're wrong, because the assumption is if you're listening to this podcast, you're probably smart enough to understand all the reasons why they're wrong. But I think probably what's worth speaking about from my perspective anyway, and maybe Phil, you have some other ideas on this as well. From my perspective, part of the reason I hate these reactions is because I know that was the goal from the get-go. I believe the youngsters are calling it rage bait. And it infuriates me so much that that's what works. If I say something if I say something that makes you so angry that you're going to talk about it on another podcast, you're going to write about it on the official South African government website, and every newspaper is going to talk about it, I've achieved my goal. Now, in this case, I think they may have bitten off more than they can chew.
Yeah, I was about to say the same thing. I think in this instance, they were like, yeah, this is more than we bargained.
But even then, Phil, I bet you there are tons of people who won't say it out loud, but secretly agree with them, and they're now following them. Let me tell you a quick anecdotal story that happened. So I was part of let's call it a seminar. It wasn't really a seminar, but for the purpose of this story, I was part of a seminar where we were discussing digital transformation in media. And one of the things we spoke about is, how important it is to transition into podcasts. Now, I was like, okay, guys, I think I'm a little bit of an expert on this. I've hosted a podcast for 10 years at this point. Quick question. Just around this current table that we're sitting at, do you listen to podcasts? Most people said, yes, I do. So, okay, just out of interest, I'd love to know which podcasts you listen to. The point that I was trying to drive to is podcasts is not a simple generic answer. The way people listen and consume podcasts is something that needs to be taken into consideration, people's taste and all of that. So there was a whole different point that I was trying to make. But in the process of trying to get to this point, I was like, yo, why are so many people answering what's that super misogynistic dude's name? Oh my
You
goodness.
gotta be more specific.
Yeah, actually I just realized as I said that. Oh my goodness. Black dude, super misogynistic. His name has just escaped me. But him, Andrew Tate related conversations, Joe Rogan, that kind. I was like, the number of people that are like full on fans of these kind of podcasts, and probably stuff that you can even tell by the way they mentioned it that they're like little, like, yeah, I listened to that podcast. So I was like, oh, there are probably so many people that probably secretly agree with your point, but they know better than to say it out loud.
Mm-hmm.
I would argue that as much as there's all this canceling, air quotes, that's happening, including their contract with MultiChoice and all of that they had, I would argue that this in the long term might benefit them because their name and content has been spread out so far. There's a lot of people that will rightfully be upset with them, but they're probably going to build a secret group of, and you know what happens in those groups of people who feel like, listen, man, this is something that I can't talk about, but I really believe it. And I'm glad I found my people. Oh, do you know the amount of support that will be coming in? That Patreon is going to be popping. The donations, secret, anonymous donations. The support, yeah, go and say it. I won't say it because I'll get cooked, but like, I agree with you secretly. I bet you there's so much of that happening. So I don't know if it actually is a situation of they bit off more than they can chew. But my first thought is they probably did.
Though I agree that hateful platforms, hateful people are flourishing, and they'll always flourish. There'll always be avenues for that. I don't think that model that works in developed nations where there's higher disposable income works in the most economically unequal country in the world. I don't think it's going to scale well. You might be able to live a decentish maybe life, but it's not going to be scalable. And ultimately, how do you grow? So you're seeing it now, even like with Joe Rogan. He's still in the top 10. He's not number one anymore. He's starting to wane. Realistically, how many more years do you think Joe Rogan has, for example? You know what I mean?
I mean, I would think if we're I haven't given enough thought to it, so I'm just going to give you my initial hot take. I think that for people like Joe Rogan, okay, for a thing like podcasting, I think finding yourself a solid, long-term, hardcore fan base niche is more valuable monetarily than having a very global, wide audience based on a particular trending thing that's going to last for a while, maybe, but then it sort of goes away. And people who don't probably even really listen to podcasts sort of are aware of you, and they listen to that episode, then they don't come back. And I think in any given flash in the pan moment, yes, having the number one podcast in all the land is very valuable. But over a long-term period, having that solid fan base of people who are like hardcore your fans will be more valuable, obviously past a certain tipping point. So as much as like his number one status may be waning, I don't think his influence and his finances will be waning anytime soon.
Fair. Bringing it back to this, I think it's still early. Granted, I'd love to give a hot take, but I think the recent years have forced me to take a more, let me wait and see how this pans out. Let me do a little more research. I do think everyone has their audience. Everyone has as what they're looking for. If you want to be a hurtful, ignorant bastard, there's content out there for you. If you want to be more nuanced, more intellectual, more measured and considered, there's content out there for you. Is one more successful than the other? No. Are there pros and cons to both? Yes. One of the cons to the content they're making is you can't really go to a mall anymore.
Yeah. We're waiting. We're actually waiting for you.
You can't live a comfortable life when you attract that type of energy. When you exude that type of energy, it's going to come back to you in certain ways. And one of the ways it's going to come back to you is you're going to get your ass kicked. Especially, and now people will be living up to that stereotype. Like, oh, so we're violent and we're crazy? Watch, fun. You know what I mean? There was a part of me that actually wanted to like call family members and just be like, yo. And I was like, yo, this is actually disgusting. I'm not going to call someone and say, yo, are you sleeping with us simply?
Okay, let me tell you the point of conversation that was happening in our house when I was discussing this with my wife. I think it. And do you know what? I just realized that we basically have the same conversation over and over again after 10 years of podcasting. Mm-hmm. I don't think content shouldn't exist by law. Even content I vehemently disagree with. So, for example, I don't think the DA and the government of South Africa should necessarily ban this kind of conversation. Oh, well, look, okay, there's an argument to be made for like hate speech that could cause harm to a group. So, okay, I could hear that. Okay, actually, you know what? I could hear that sort of conversation. But in general, I would think, because probably the appeal of a podcast is it's just what people speak about. So people feel like they have a parasocial relationship. They're listening to things that people speak about. Guaranteed, those kind of conversations are happening in smaller groups here, there, whatever the case is.
No, I think that the issue is conversations without context. So if you're on a talk show, for example, you can call a talk show and say some reprehensible things. I've heard it. But they just contextualize it.
No, I mean, there's talk show, right? And then think about any corner spaza shop where people are just talking stories. Those exact sentiments have likely been said in many different places, in much smaller groups. And the appeal
the key point is much smaller group.
The appeal of many podcasts is we are putting forward. Some podcasts are, we're here to dig deep and find information and educate. Other podcasts are very talk show style. Other podcasts are, it's literally the conversation that's happening on the corner and we're giving you a chance to be part of that conversation. So as much as I disagree with that conversation, if I were to hear that conversation happening by people somewhere, I'll be like, yo, what are you talking about? That's not cool. And if I hear it on a podcast, I think the backlash and that's not cool. I don't want to hear that. I don't want to multi-choice canceling their contract and people talking about how deplorable this is. 100%. That's what should happen. But then I'm like, the government is now involved. I'm like, okay, whoa. I disagree with them as well, but government now involved? Do you get what I mean?
I do, but that's also the function of politics. Politics is cheap wins. Politics is theater, right? So it's how do we galvanize our electorate? How do we score political points? How do we show that, hey, people understand, oh, this is a hot button issue? All right, we're off to the races. And this dovetail well into the Sydney Sweeney topic that we might discuss. It's the exact same thing. It's people trying to score political capital of a cultural topic and blowing up beyond what it deserves to be, simply because it's the hot topic of conversation. You get what I'm saying? And there's also part of it. In fact, I wanted to discuss it last week and we never did, but we might even touch on it here. It's like the Jubilee thing.
The Jubilee?
There are several people who are very convinced that Jubilee as a platform is a psyop. And
what the heck is
I agree
Jubilee?
with them. Psychological operation.
No, not psyop. What is Jubilee? I know what a psyop is.
You've seen Jubilee. Have you seen those videos of one person in the middle of a circle and then he's surrounded by a bunch of idiots and it's like one libertarian.
Oh yeah. No, that's 100%. That's those are agendas and bad faith. I know what you're talking about.
So I saw I've seen them pop up more and more, and I hate all of them, and I even made note of it. One of them was it's a form of dadaism, which is essentially dadaism boils down to a meme. So it reduces complex topics to a meme, which can then be manipulated and distorted to suit people's agendas. So in the Mehdi Hassan video, for example, Mehdi Hassan speaks to someone who proudly says they're fascist. And it's shocking to us, but what Jubilee have done is they've given a platform to a fascist. And what that does is it moves the Overton window where people who believe in fascism, same way with the people that believe in racism and colored people engage in incest, now that topic isn't taboo anymore. It's the same thing.
It's like a dog whistle, basically.
It's the same thing with Kanye being a Nazi. It's okay for us to talk about being a Nazi again.
So the initial shock factor is carried by Kanye, but when the next person says it, it's not as shocking, and then the next person says it's not really that shocking.
Because now it's a common talking point. It's been mentioned over and over. And it's another tangent that I have, which we'll get into another episode. So listeners, remind me. I was watching. I can't remember what it was, but it was another movie. I think it was. I was going back to old Superman things or something else. And I was like, yo, why are there so the common theme, particularly in American action and comic book movies? I feel like Nazis are overrepresented. Not that it's a bad thing to kill a Nazi, but there's a lot of Nazis getting killed in popular culture in America, throughout the years. And I find that fascinating. And bringing it back to this is these topics are broached because it as you mentioned, it makes it easier for people to now feel like, yo, I felt this or I think about this and I discuss it. And a lot of the locker room / bar room conversations, crazy things like this are discussed regularly. And sometimes even unchecked. And even when you do check someone, if that's what someone believes, the likelihood of you changing their mind is little to none, unless they're exposed.
Checking them just makes them keep quiet if they... And in fact, in this day and age, it might not even do that, but yeah.
Exactly. So all this is to say, there's a lot of conversations that I don't feel like there's anything new, to be fair. Nazis have been around for damn near 100 years. Racism, hundreds of years. I just feel these people, it's easier for them to have a platform. But is it increasing racism? Maybe. I think it's too soon to tell, because how many years have we lived in a quote-unquote post-racial society, if that even ever existed?
So sometimes it's difficult to allow me to just do a quick mental thought experiment here. Sometimes it's difficult to like grasp the concept of things at such a grand scale. We're talking about millions of people or billions of people on social media and so on. So I often think I try to take a concept and then bring it down to the idea of a village. You have a village of 100 people living in it. Of those 100 people, it's very likely that most of them have a similar belief system. Most of them would agree on the fundamentals, but some of them would have divergent views. Some of them might have what would be considered slightly or even, extremely more progressive views, and others might have what could be viewed as a lot more conservative, and some of them might even have like very deviant type views, right? But the majority would have similar views. So, for example, if this village of 100 people felt that, women are equal to men, 60 of the people in the village believe that. 20, let's say, believe, I don't know, I think men might be slightly more superior. And then 10 believe, women might be slightly more superior. And then 10 believe, nah, women belong in the kitchen. Those last, like the others with the slightly might feel like they can speak and then get shot down and speak. But that last 10 who have that extremely divergent, that deviant view, they probably would feel like I can't speak. Because the 90 would be like, shut up, what are you talking about? That's disgusting. And because they feel that they can't speak, they would secretly hold those views. Publicly, they would perform what the village expects. They might even get married and do whatever they expect other people expect them to do, and they'll die with their beliefs, and it just stays like that. But if those 10 were to individually find each other and validate their beliefs by, oh, there's someone else who also thinks that, which wouldn't happen normally because you're not going to say anything. Now you've got this little community that believes this thing, and maybe they start feeling emboldened to not only speak out, but to start treating people in the way that they believe, right? So this little thought experiment helps me sort of think like in a small society where there may be divergent views, but there's a generally accepted view. And then there's this divergent group that have this really disgusting, terrible view. They normally wouldn't feel comfortable saying it. So then I think, okay, so now let's apply this to, let's say, extreme racism. Most people are probably have some level of racial bias, implicit or, even they might be aware of it. Some people are pretty biased, but it's not like they believe you should round up all black people and kill them, or you should round up all Romani people and kill them, or whatever, right? But they might think that, oh no, I think that, I do think that white people should have all the power. Some people might believe that. And then there's that small, really like extreme group, and they're finding each other on social media, and they're finding each other in the comment section of this podcast, or they're finding each other in Twitter now, or whatever. And because they've found each other, they're now emboldened to speak the things that they really believe. And that status of feeling emboldened makes them move on to perhaps slightly more extreme actions. And that's what I like. That's what I worry about. Then it makes me think, should we then, as a general society, ban those conversations? I don't think you can. But when I think about it, I think that, I don't know if this explanation has made sense, but I think that that's one of the things that, like one of the ills that social media has brought. On the one hand, it's helped people who maybe were, maybe they were shy about a certain thing, or, they had very progressive views, but they didn't know others also thought that way, or their specific niche interests that they didn't know other people also had those interests. And then now you sort of find each other, and now you have a group of furries on social media. Cool. But then there's like the really harmful negative side of it, and they've found each other and they can embolden each other. That's what worries me now.
Yeah, I think you make a solid point. I think what I believe is, and you touched on it earlier, is community. I feel a lot of people are either searching for community, and because of that, they will adjust their views to varying degrees to be accepted in the community. And I think that is the problem. I also do believe that when people aren't being taught to be media literate, I would like to think I have a level of media literacy. I have been paid by organizations to teach media literacy. It's something that I've taken interest in. And I even find myself, if I'm consuming a lot of media sometimes, it can affect my view.
Mm.
And if I don't stop to think about it, it'll affect me. And this is why I feel like moving the Overton window, as in moving the paradigm in which or topics that we feel comfortable discussing, is so dangerous. A great example of this, I don't know if you saw that interview. I'm forgetting his name. Sorry. He's the former doctor who became a late night host in Egypt. Got very popular because he was covering a lot of Middle East stuff, and he did an interview with the Nelk Boys like a few days ago. I'm not going to watch the Nelk Boys because I don't trust the Nelk twins, but I don't trust them. But they ask him and they say, "Yo, you guys saw this comment that I'm anti-Semite. Where did that come from?" And he's like, "Oh, I just saw it on Twitter." I was like, "Okay, no, but where did it come from?" I was like, "What? That's it. I saw it on Twitter. That formed my view on who you are, and I believed it." And he's like, "My guy, you guys can't keep saying you're kids. You're 30. At 30, people are building careers and building families. Like, you got to grow up." But sadly, that's the reality of people around us. I hate to say it, but it's the truth. I've got so many older relatives who I believe are very intelligent, who are well educated, who have degrees. But some of the WhatsApp forwards I get sent are head scratching, because even they, with their vast education and understanding, do not critically analyze the information that's being sent to them anymore. Or they got so used to, well, if it's in print, it must be true. So this is true. And it's only gonna get worse with AI. So all this to say is there'll always be people who are looking to capitalize and deceive or manipulate people, especially people who are susceptible. And as humans, we are already inclined to be susceptible for a number of reasons. One of the major ones being we're looking for a community.
Actually, now while we're on this topic, you hinted at Sydney Sweeney, but let me talk about another one that I really found interesting, and we spoke about it a little bit in the group during the week that we were not on the pod. Anthony Fantano is someone who we have made reference to before on this podcast, and if you're a fan of hip hop, you're probably familiar with his YouTube channel at the very least. He has been an internet person for a while. So, there's a ton of stuff that I didn't even know until this controversy came up. But long story short, Anthony Fantano has that YouTube channel called The Needle Drop, where he reviews music, mostly hip hop music. He calls himself the internet's busiest music nerd. And yeah, he reviews albums. He's a white guy, but very often he's reviewing, music of black origin. Mobo. Anyway, he used to have a channel called That Is the Plan. Some people who disagree with him, shall we say, pointed out some clips of him from the late 2000s, where he has said some controversial things, including him using the N-word. He defends himself by saying I was quoting, but back then I didn't understand, and I've since apologized. But long story short, all these clips of things that he said in the past came up, and it caused a controversy. And it felt like there was this really harsh attack on him, way harsher than I would expect of what I've seen, when videos come up of someone having used the N-word and stuff like that. So, it made me a little bit interested to pay a little more attention than I normally would have. And I sort of came to this conclusion, and I'm curious to know if you agree with it or not. I think as much as we pontificate, most of us know that times were different. I had to look back through some of my old tweets to be like, geez, I can't believe I said this. Not only were times different, our knowledges were different, and so on. So that doesn't excuse something wrong, but it explains it. So in my mind, if someone comes out, or there's history that comes out that this person said this or did this that was wrong, and that person says, yeah, look, my bad, I didn't know any better, I really messed up, I'm sorry. To me, that's an open and shut case, Johnson. It's a complete circle. We all have things in our past that, we didn't know better, so we didn't do better. And when you learn, you do better, and we move forward. For some people, maybe you really hurt them and they choose not to forgive. Cool, all good. But I think it's very disingenuous for many of us to make huge deals of someone who apologizes and seems to be, you can never know intent 100%. But if this person says, I'm sorry, that seems like, to me, it's done. As opposed to people who are openly racist right now, openly saying racist. Like there's someone right now on Twitter who's literally typing their very derogatory view of black people. But the energy we have is for someone who said something wrong 15 years ago and then apologized. So to me, it just feels like it doesn't connect. And in the little bit of like, oh, let me pay attention, a little bit of attention to this story. I think I saw that, okay, the big problem here is a huge section of anyone commenting on these issues are commenting in bad faith. So we can't even have good faith discussions about, I hear your apology, but I don't accept it because of ABC. What you did hurt me. Versus someone else saying, listen, what you said wasn't cool, but shout out to you. You've apologized. We move. You could have a good faith conversation between those two groups of people. But the majority of the conversation is going to be dominated by people who are conversing in bad faith. Their goal is, you rated that Nicki Minaj album that I love so much a 3 out of 10, so I'm coming for you. Or the flip side, he was on Kendrick's side during the battle, so I'm going to defend him. It's no longer about the merits of what they said and apologized for. It's now about who's got the bigger agenda and who must be canceled and who's better or worse than the other. We can no longer have a conversation about, you said some wrong stuff, but you didn't know any better. Or you should have known better, but you said some wrong stuff, but you apologized. Or I don't accept your apology because I genuinely feel that you should have known better. I feel like you could really have good faith conversations there, but we can't because of this agenda. And I think a large part of the conversation that we're talking about here in the open chat, granted here there's no apologies and all of that, but now the fact that it's now government and policy and so on, I feel like we're no longer having good faith conversations. I would say something very similar about the Joey Swole controversy, which I can get into in a little bit, or Hulk Hogan, or Sydney Sweeney.
I think those are very different. So I think let's attack one at a time because those are very different in my opinion. I think to put it bluntly, I think first and foremost, I think the Anthony Fantano situation, I think you summed it up very well, but I think it happened how it's supposed to happen. I was having this discussion with someone yesterday. I do believe that if you come from a class, a group, or society or race that is inherently privileged, it is not wrong for people who have been traditionally been the victim of your privilege, whether it's yours or your races or your class or your people, to view with a bit of skepticism. So we should, I think, and also I'm saying we as people of color, but this is more so for Black Americans. I think Black Americans, but people that are Black in general, should always view a white person in their community or in their space with a bit of skepticism and not be so welcoming. I think the big issue has been like people are too freewheeling and too easy with the invites to the cookout. You know what I mean? Just put it a little stricter, more criteria on who you invite to the cookout.
What, Phil? Your solution is we need to be more divisive.
Dan, you're taking this in bad faith. That's what I'm saying. I am saying have scrutiny. Which means
I'm not taking it in bad faith. I'm actually disagreeing. But okay, finish your point.
You're disagreeing.
I'll explain why. Yeah, go ahead.
So the reason why I say that is it does not surprise me when a white person says or does something that is or can be construed as racist, because you're from the dominant society. Racism is the norm. Mm-hmm. It's extremely difficult for you not to be. I grew up as a straight man. There was a time I was homophobic. If a homophobic person saw me and was like, I don't trust straight men. Should I be offended? No, because if they went back far enough into my history, they would find comments that were homophobic that would hurt them and insult them, and I have to apologize for that. I'm like, there was a different time. I didn't know what I know now. I grew the environment, blah 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 blah. I now know better, so I do better. My bad. I'm sorry. And they can choose to accept that apology, and they can choose not to. That's their decision, and that's the same thing I'm applying here. In that same regard, the issue with the videos is not new. Anthony Fantano has discussed this before. I was hurt by the first time I saw it. I appreciated how he took accountability and how he apologized. Even this time, I appreciate how he took accountability and he apologized, which is what it should be. And if this issue comes up again in 5 years, as he has said, if he is a man of his word, he said, when it comes up again, I'll take accountability. I'll explain and apologize again because I understand my place in the culture and I want to make sure that I don't hurt the people that look to me for an opinion. That is perfect. The issue, as you rightfully said, is that it's not being engaged in good faith because we can read between the lines. This is a hit job by Drake and academics. It doesn't take Clouseau or Sherlock Holmes to solve this mystery. And we know why that they're running this hit campaign. It's terrible, but it is what it is. And that being said, it also falls flat when it's coming from those very imperfect messages with a lot more dirt in their closet too. So I think that kind of puts I think that kind of puts a bow on the Fantano thing. It was disappointing. It is what it is.
So here's where I want to push back, right? This is when I said I disagree. Let me try and explain one. If you are a fan of Anthony Fantano or you watch his content and consume it regularly, and then you come across these videos and you are hurt, you have every right. You have never heard of this man in your life. The first time you see this man is when academics posts these clips. You have no idea of the context. You don't even know where it was said. You don't even know what it's about. You don't even know who this person is. All you see is these clips that were posted by academics who is his op. I don't think the result is the same, where someone can sit and say, man, I was hurt. I feel like that's almost regressing. It's taking away from us having real conversations. Now, I don't want to sit here and tell people what they can and can't be hurt by. But I would say, really, 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 are you telling me you don't have an agenda? You're not pontificating or you're not trying to virtue signal or make yourself look like you're fighting for the cause. You are genuinely hurt by this man that you don't know, speaking about something you don't know in the context that you don't know. It's just a clip that you saw posted by academics. Genuine. If you tell me in good faith, outside of all those things, you genuinely are hurt, I will be surprised, but fine. Maybe I shouldn't police how people get hurt. My problem is the majority of this entire conversation is based on people who don't know. Because the people who do know him and who do follow him saw that apology 5 years ago. A few might not have, and maybe this is new. Fine. But we can't find out because of the bad faith conversations that are having. Now, if we say again, okay, this issue is going to come up in 5 years again, is it going to come up because his fans in 5 years might be, wow, I was hurt by those statements and those comments? Or is it going to come up again because someone is going to weaponize these things that we know that you're going to have to apologize for? To me, I don't think that is how it should happen. You've described it as this cycle is how it should happen because the people who he's hurt deserve to hear an apology. In my opinion, yes. But if you are genuinely consuming his content as a fan, because why would you be hurt by him if you don't know him and you don't know the context? Why would it hurt you when there's people actively saying those things and you see them, but you're not hurt by them? I'm not talking about you. I'm not talking about you, by the way. I'm speaking.
No, you're not talking about me. I'm just saying, like, I'm trying to put this in perspective. If you play this back, what it kind of sounds like you're saying is people should not be hurt by hearing racist remarks from even a stranger.
Not at all.
Racism will...
What I'm saying is, I don't believe the majority of people who had something to say were genuinely hurt. So I'm talking about the conversation that happened online. If someone genuinely was hurt,
I don't think
cool.
I don't think it's fair for you to, I don't think it's fair for you to say that because you're dismissing, like, and I think this is such a sensitive and dangerous topic. We can't dismiss it. I genuinely believe, if, for example, there's that woman who became a meme who like called the cops when people were having a cookout at a barbecue.
Mm-hmm.
Or there's many examples we can point to in Zimbabwe of racist incidents. We don't need to know. Like, oh yeah, there was an example of a woman who was being racist to a till operator. I think it was okay. We don't need to know the till operator to feel bad for her or be hurt on her behalf because we're like, yo, this is messed up.
100%.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
In the same regard, we don't need to know Anthony Fantano. If you saw the Trayvon Martin video and how it was edited and you feel like he was making fun of Trayvon Martin, you don't need to know either Trayvon Martin or Fantano to be able to like, yo, that stings.
Mm-hmm.
You know? So there are people that can genuinely be hurt by that. And the reason why I say that things happen the way it happens is audiences constantly expand. People are not, it's impossible for someone to be abreast of all these things. And I'm going to take a bit of a tangent, but we'll come back to it. For example, Hulk Hogan died.
Mm-hmm.
And there were people in our group and people on social media who were genuinely hurt by Hulk Hogan dying.
Yeah.
And for a second, I was like, why? Because I knew news they did not know. And I genuinely believe there are people who did not know this. And I was like, wait a minute. Actually, I can see why. Because Terry Bollea, the person, and Hulk Hogan, the character, are two different people. And sometimes with celebrity and wrestling, we don't separate the two. The character of Hulk Hogan was great. Got me in love with wrestling, inspirational, loved him. The person, Terry Bollea, was a dirtbag. Incredible racist, abusive to his wife, possibly abusive to his daughter from what the conjecture stories and some of the quotes she has released has been. Incredible racist on and off the mic. Union buster, ruined the careers of many wrestlers because of his shenanigans. Horrible person. But there are people who did not know he was this when he died and they mourned. And then people were like, nah, fam. This man did A, B, C, D, E. And some people maturely were like, yeesh, I loved Hulk Hogan. I didn't know this. And they had to process, what does this mean for my childhood? What does this mean for like what I grew up with? What does this mean for my worldview, which he helped shape? And what does this mean for how I interact with black people? Some people did it better than others, but that doesn't mean they shouldn't be hurt. So does it mean that because the racist rant about Hulk Hogan dropped 10 years ago, people shouldn't be talking about it today? No, because they didn't know about it.
Okay, so
sometimes people don't know about things.
Let me address both of those things separately. So in the first instance, right? If you were to play back this conversation, and I know there will be some people who agree and disagree separately, and I'm not. I think there's room for us to have a lot of divergent views, depending on so many things, our view of the world, our background, the way we see celebrities, etc. So I'm just simply stating my view here. And I'm not saying you must have this view and must not have this view. But it sounds to me similar to what you described. If you were to play back this conversation, it almost sounds like we're implying that if we agree that footage, those clips were manipulated to make them seem a certain way that they were not. There were some hurtful things that were said, but they are made to seem more hurtful than they were because of the way those videos were manipulated.
No, not all of them. So I think also for the purpose of this conversation,
this specific instance, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you literally said like, okay, so for example, for someone 5 years from now, if they see this clip of him laughing at this whole Trayvon Martin, which by the way was taken out of context because a certain clip was added after another clip and made it seem like he was laughing at that particular statement, when in reality he was laughing at the person's reaction to something like that.
But
this whole story, right?
Sorry to cut you off, but I think it's important. But we also have to hold him accountable for placing himself on a show with people who would say things of that nature.
Again, I disagree with you here because who is we? Who's we have to hold him accountable? This is kind of the point that I'm. Okay, let me paint this whole picture and then I'll explain what I mean. I think on an individual basis, if I think that what I've heard hurt me, and I can genuinely say I was hurt by this thing that I heard, then you have every right to be hurt, and you have every right to not listen to that person who you were not listening to in any way in the first place. That's where I lose. That's where the signal goes for me. This is someone whose content you didn't consume, you didn't know them, you have nothing to do with them. They've said something you don't like. So now you're going to not listen to them. This is where the disconnect is. Or is it that you want to make sure others don't listen to him? If you feel that strongly about it, right? Because the implication from what you said is, because you gave the example of someone like a till operator who was treated in a racist way. That's something different. We're looking at someone who was specifically the victim of racial abuse. This is something that was said on a podcast somewhere in a different context that is alien to you. If you consume, okay, I'm not trying to say that only if you know the person is it valid. Not at all. I'm trying to follow the logical step of how someone gets hurt. If I get hurt by every racist statement I hear, surely I'm going to be more hurt by the people who are openly saying racist things right now. If I'm not the kind of person that gets hurt by every racist statement I hear, right? I get hurt by the people who I am familiar with or I know who are interacting with me or directing it towards me. Do I get hurt by racist things that are said in general? There's so many of them. So am I hurt by every single one? Now, cases are different, situations are different. I'm very willing to accept that, you know what? There's certain things that I might not understand why it hurt you, but it hurt you. Very willing to accept that. If that's a conversation we're having, where someone can say clearly that there's something specific about this that hurt me, I don't have to even ask you to explain why it hurt you. But when I say I just don't believe the general conversation, 90% plus of the conversation that was going on about Anthony Fantano was genuinely from people who were hurt. And I think it's because of the bad faith discussions. And the reason I don't believe that is because you can't tell me that someone who you don't consume in a context you're not familiar with said something in a way that was edited, and then now you believe that what must happen? What must happen to that person? Must they be arrested for it? I don't think you think that. Must you not consume their content anymore? You were not consuming it in the first place. What must happen?
So I'm not sure who you're posing the hypothetical for. I get where you're coming from, but I'm not sure who you're posing it for, because I think that hypothetical is somewhat removed from this discussion, because that's not necessarily what we're discussing here. But I think also you're reducing it to 1 to 2 edited clips. There was multiple clips, and the whole point of this smear campaign, as it were, is one of the major things that Anthony Fantano would do is when he was quoting the lyrics, when he was quoting band names, when he was quoting songs, he would say the F slur, he would say the N word with the hard ER. To the point where I think there's a 12-minute compilation of him saying these things.
Mm-hmm.
And that's also the other thing. So if I'm just a casual consumer, I may not know this man from a can of paint. And that's kind of what the point is. I don't know him from a can of paint. And now I've been exposed to his content. I just don't know. This guy's a music reviewer. I see him once in a while. Okay, cool. Not really my type of thing, whatever. Yeah. And then all I see is video 1. It looks like he's laughing at Trayvon. I'm not going to investigate further because I don't really care, right? Video 2, I'm seeing him saying the hard ER. There was another video I forget what the third video was. So I see these multiple pieces of content. It's going to devalue the brand. And it's not necessarily to piss people off, but to some degree it is, because sadly, social media has also become this outrage engine where people just respond to the snippet they see, but they don't really dig into the context. Then there's now a whole thread, a whole discussion about, yo, F this dude, this, that, and the third. And where it really hurts is the pocket, because these people make their money by the viability of their brand and selling ads against that. Brands want to be associated with Anthony Fantano, not just necessarily for the views, but for everything that's around it. So now brands are pulling away and saying, "Isha, fam, the block is out. We can't work with you right now." Bam, bam. It's the same thing like with Shannon Sharp. Because the blog is hot, there's a lot less ads on his podcast these days. That's not a coincidence. And that's where that's just the function of society. So I get what you're saying is like people are being outraged for something that they weren't consuming anyway. But ultimately, we can't really police how people react to what they perceive. Or ideally, what we should try and further is, hey, this is how you can critically analyze the media. Come to your own conclusion after you've had a full spectrum analysis. If that's how you feel at the end of the day, that's your decision to make. But don't let your perception be driven by 1 to 2 pieces of manipulated content or manipulated messaging.
That is my entire point. And the reason why I reacted so strongly to we. I think a lot of people genuinely don't feel a certain type of way, but they are performative and they are simply saying what is supposed to be said. Like you mentioned Hulk Hogan as well. All right, cool. The Hulk Hogan story ties in with this Joey Swole story. So Joey Swole is this guy who's built a name for himself by calling out bad behaviors in the gym.
I mean, we can start with the Hulk Hogan one.
Yeah, it's both of them, right? So I'll use his stories to sort of tell this point. So Joey Swole's built this brand of positivity. We support each other. We're in the gym for positive things together. This kind of behavior is not on. We should help each other. That's his whole thing, right? So there'll always be a clip of something wrong happening in the gym, and then his big bald head pops up of him explaining why that's wrong and we need to be positive. Hulk Hogan dies.
You need to do better.
Hulk Hogan dies. Joey Swole posts a video of himself dressed as Hulk Hogan, claims it's his favorite wrestler. He's then on a live stream, and his live stream, people are calling him out, like, why would you be celebrating that racist? Then he says, first of all, the statement about colored people was like, yo, whoa. He says, I think he literally says
he said, no, why are you guys calling me out? Why don't you call out the colored people that
the
were
colored
praising
athletes?
you too?
Yeah, colored athletes.
Which
that
is
were also
already like a double way because, hey, colored is one thing, but also you're deflecting and saying, well, if I'm wrong, they're wrong too.
So firstly that. And then secondly.
You're white, they're black.
Yeah. Then secondly, he was apparently blocking people, whatever. Anyway, then he comes out with an apology video where he says, listen, my bad.
Not only that, then he also said, Hulk Hogan made a mistake and he apologized for it.
I forgot about that. Yeah.
Which
I don't think he said he apologized. He said, I don't think someone's legacy is damaged by one mistake or something like that. And then everyone's like,
and that's another mistake. It wasn't one. It was an active decision.
Yes, Phil. We are aware of that. We don't have to tell the story of why that's a bad thing.
He lived his life for multiple years being that.
Now, he then came out. Joey Swole came out and had to apologize. Like, listen, I've now done my research and I've had conversations with people. I realized I was wrong. Racism is not a mistake. I shouldn't have called people colored athletes. That's my bad. To me, that's, you know what? That was messed up of you. Apology accepted. To someone else, they might feel, nah, apology not accepted, fam. Cool. You're very allowed to have that opinion. But a big part of me believes that most of the conversations that came out afterwards weren't people who genuinely feel that, no, I'm sorry, I don't accept your apology. Rather, it was people who were feeding that outrage engine, who were following this is what we think and we believe this, et cetera, et cetera. That's kind of same with, Hulk Hogan. It's a little bit different, but I'll tie it in this way. Me personally, I was aware, I wouldn't call myself a Hulk Hogan fan, but I mean, when I was young, as a family, we watched wrestling before it was banned in the house for violence. But you know, Hulk Hogan was a fave low-key in the family. Years later, I did hear about him being racist and all of that. And then when he died, like part of me was like, oh yeah, I remember back in the day when he was in wrestling. And I remembered watching that documentary about his impact on the sport, it's hard to call it a sport, on the entertainment activity of wrestling. And then also part of me was also, yeah, but he was also racist toward the end.
It is a sport. It's a sport.
Okay, so if someone says, I'm aware that he was racist, but man, that my childhood was lit because of Hulk Hogan. I loved watching that sport. Hulk Hogan was my favorite. I don't see why you would attack that person. I can understand someone saying, yeah, no, for me, his legacy was ruined because of his racism. Yeah, fair enough. But for me, look, I guarantee you every wrestler, and I feel comfortable not making an exception, has something messed up about them, especially if we're talking about 80s, 90s, 2000s. I guarantee you. So the fact that we know obviously plays a role, but at the same time, that documentary you watched probably would have shown you the levels of misogyny, would have shown you the levels of mistreatment of other people and how they even mistreated themselves and their bodies. And let's not even get into Chris Jericho and other people like that, right? But for some reason, the mob mentality is, what, you said something nice about Hulk Hogan? We need to do it. And I'm like, whoa. Even the way you described it, you were like, listen, not everyone knows, but then they will find out. Okay, even if they find out, is it not normal for someone to be like, yeah, damn, that's kind of messed up, but Hulk Hogan was lit though? Like, I feel like many people would feel that way. Other people might feel, yeah, no, that totally ruined it for me. And that's also, my point is...
But I feel like...
each individual's reaction should be their individual reaction. And each individual has a right to that reaction. And the feeling that we must all have a collective understanding that this is wrong because he was racist, you shouldn't like him. Like, what? To me, it feels very mob mentality and not authentic individual reactions.
Okay. I feel like I get what you're saying, but my confusion is it feels like old men screaming at clouds. We know that social media, beyond all this, it runs on mob mentality. So we can go back any we can pick a random date, random time of the year, random anything within the last decade. We'll have examples of outrage engine, mob mentality. That's just how social media works. And we know this because the algorithms have been fine-tuned to do just this, right? But the frustrating thing is with people that are popular, especially with Joe, for example, which ironically, a lot of his cachet was built by feeding that outrage engine. So he kind of became the victim of what he was used to. Guys, I loved Hulk Hogan, the wrestler. This is new information. I still love the wrestler Hulk Hogan. That messed up. My bad. And you move on. If people choose to accept that, fine. I would have been like, Joe, cool. Like, I'm not losing sleep over that. It's the same thing. It's like The Rock, for example. With his mixed and black heritage, he did a 3-page love letter to Hulk Hogan. No one really cared because they're like, yeah, we know you. We know what you're about, blah, blah, blah. But also, he also highlighted and said, yo, I'm speaking to what this person did for me personally. Right? And if you choose to eulogize someone in that respect, I think it's in bad faith to call him out. If you say, yo, I know this person may have done some horrible things, but these are the positive memories I have, you can't take away those positive memories. I don't think that's fair. Where Joey messed up is just lacked accountability. He lacked any real reflection. And then he threw a temper tantrum when people were like, nah, we don't really feel good with that apology. It was like, all the things I've done, I'm a nice guy. I pay for black women gym memberships.
That was funny, to be honest. So, I'm not a fan of Joey and we must forgive. I'm not in that position at all. And I agree with you. He messed up. I'm not over here trying to say he didn't mess up. My point is, Phil, if you and I were in regular live streams, I guarantee you we're going to mess up.
And I don't think it's impossible for you to come across anyone who's been in the public eye, us included, who hasn't messed up. It's how you respond that shows your character.
So my question is, how you respond instantly, how you respond the next day, how you respond a week later. Do those have different weightings? In my opinion, they do. I think instant responses haven't really been thought out. You're having a hot take. Maybe you need to take a moment. Maybe you're feeling emotional at that time. Maybe whatever, right? So yes, he had an instant response that was messed up. Is the next day is like, yo, I'm reflecting yesterday on how I responded. That was bad. I apologize. In my mind, to me anyway, that's like, all right, cool. Because you did mess up. Your response was messed up. But all right, well done for apologizing. But our current position is he didn't take accountability. Whereas he did, it's just his first response didn't take accountability. His next one did. And then his temper tantrum afterwards also was hilarious because, first of all, this is the internet.
Negates the taking accountability because how can you take accountability and then throw a temper tantrum?
I was like, listen, this is the internet also. Can you also relax? But I think overall, when people are talking about cancel culture, I'm like, you know what? I was in this position where that is not a thing. But there's this mob mentality that exists where I feel like there's so many people speaking in not good faith. It's all about positioning yourself as this paragon of virtue, this virtue signaling, pontificating, and we don't do that. We think like, do you really think that? And I know it's because some people will really think that, and it's unfair for me to question people who do really feel that way. So I apologize for those who genuinely feel hurt. I'm not speaking about you. I'm speaking about what I believe to be the majority, those who not actually hurt, but they're just trying to position themselves as people who are righteous. And that's what bothers me.
I think we need to find something. This is about going to be the funniest episode we've ever done. We need to lighten the mood here. Okay, I'm going to try to lighten the mood.
Lighten the mood?
I'm gonna get you involved. So
I was about to make such an inappropriate joke, yo. You see, that's why we should never do a live show. Anyway, go ahead, Phil. Tell me this joke.
So I'm a little annoyed. I don't know if you saw your homies have announced shows in South Africa.
Who's
the guys
not?
that just read tweets. Those guys that just read tweets on their podcast.
James and Fuhad.
Yeah, those guys. Anywho, so many months ago, actually.
Don't be jealous, Phil. Don't be jealous.
Many months ago. So, someone close in life was reading romantasy books. And I would, get them romantasy books from time to time. And they were like, you should get into this one. And sometimes I'd look over the shoulder and see them reading the books. I'm like, oh, there's someone wearing it. Because I had questions. Because every time I'd lean over, it was always, he took a shaft, his passion.
I was about to ask, how often was the word throbbing used? That's what I was going to ask.
Pulsating, throb, heat, so many, all the time I was like, when does the dialogue happen? Because every time I see a page, it's just a lot, And now I've got questions because apparently like these are fairies or these are werewolves. And I'm like, wait, so when they do is it the wolf? Is it the wolf PP? What I'm like, don't be ridiculous. Of course, they didn't go into the human form and this, that, the third, blah, 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 blah.
So wait,
you should read.
I thought I was gonna have a chance to like sneak it in, but you mentioned it already. Romantasy.
Yeah, they sneak it in.
Romantasy is romance fantasy.
Mm-hmm. It's basically Mills and Boone, but werewolf, or vampire or fairy,
and wizards and and enchantress and whatever.
At the same time that this happened, I remember coming across an article about Rebecca Yarros and the numbers she was doing. Like she in 2023, 2024, she was the highest selling author in the world. She is running the game right now. Running the game. And then there's another, I believe it's A Court of Roses. I forget the author's name. These guys are doing insane numbers. They make George R. Martin blush, right? So basically, they've merged the deep fantasy lore of one of George R. Martin and Frank Thomas
and J.K. Rowling.
No,
no, okay, that was
to a certain degree.
This is just rage bait. Never mind, ignore it.
J.K. Rowling's writing is terrible.
I've been trying to say this.
No,
but
but for kids, I appreciate, and I've said this before, because I tried watching the books and then I read a bit of, I tried watching the movies rather than I read a bit of the books and I realized, if I'm a kid, I'm getting into reading and like, I find a large book daunting. This is a great way
100%.
Present a palatable big read,
and she
get me on the track.
Her world building, while questionable when it comes to detail, is A1 when it comes to engagingness. The statistic engagingness.
Yeah. So all this to say, this thing was doing. So I was like, is this like what you're reading? She's like, yeah. I was like, oh snap, okay, cool. So that's kind of how I got into it. I was like, if this is what you like, I got you. Started getting the books every time I travel, go to the airport, get a teacher, all good. And she was like, I need you to read these. And I was like, do I have to? At the time, like a lot was going on. I was busy. I was dealing with stuff. I was like, nah, whatever. Obviously they weren't too happy about that. Recent weeks, I've been forced to sit down. I've literally been forced on bed rest. I've been told, fam, you need to chill out, otherwise things are not going to end well. So I was like, cool. You know what? I've got some free time. I've got something. Let me start reading. Let me read this book eventually. So I started reading the book. Wasn't great, but it wasn't bad. I got into it. I was like, okay. And keep in mind, the only fiction and I'm a little embarrassed to say, the only fiction I'd been reading in the last few years I was just going back to my Sherlock Holmes books because it reminds me of when I was a kid. It helps me sleep. But outside of that, I was just reading nonfiction. If it wasn't a report, I was reading, Atomic Habits, or I was damn near a manosphere podcaster. So I'm reading this book. I'm like, reading for pleasure is fun. Like I like it. It's good. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
This world building it's not as detailed because Ninda Jaira, my George R. R. Martin books or Dune, where I literally have to have the companion near me.
Mhm.
Like I've got to have the diagrams, I've got to have the maps, I've got to have the character mind maps and all that stuff. This was digestible. I was picking up on it and I was like, I bet.
This is so funny.
Then the most annoying thing happened is like, she's like, you should discuss this on the podcast. I was like, yeah, maybe we should. And she's like, you know who discusses it on their podcast? And they're doing numbers. James and Fuad. And I was like, damn it. And then I started looking at the posts that they're dropping. These mofos. The thing is, they're not even reading the book, Dan. They're listening to the audio book.
It counts as reading. It counts as reading, Phil. It counts as reading.
And they are doing Book Talk has gone goo gaga over them. So you're talking about content, Dan. This is how we need to break into this space. We're gonna start a book club. We're just gonna read romantasies. Right now, we're on the Empyrean series. If you've read Fourth Wing.
So actually, I just Googled the name you mentioned, and it's so funny because I had it it was recommended. I saw people talking about it on Twitter, and I was like, what on earth are you guys talking about? It's like, oh, this new dope fantasy series. I was like, all right, I used to like reading fantasy series. I'll check this out. And then now I'm hearing that it's romantasy. That's so funny.
So you know, the wild thing is, right? I think in terms of, and one of the reasons it was recommended to me is like, this is actually really good character development and world building. In my opinion, the world building isn't amazing, but it's decent enough.
Mm.
There's actually not that much sex, which I appreciate. It's only like, I think 3, but there's a lot of longing. Oh God, there's longing. Like right now I'm reading Iron Flame. Iron Flame is like 800 pages.
Book 2
It's
in
a
the Empyrean
substantial
series.
My guy, 30% of those 800 pages are just about longing. And his body's so chiseled. I want to touch, but I can't. Because something happened. I can't explain what happened, but something happened. It's like, I want to let him touch. Oh, but look at his body. Oh, you should take me. Oh.
Is it written from the female protagonist's perspective?
Yes, but what I've also realized, because you know me, when I get into something, I get nerdy. There's even hidden chapters of like Fourth Wing that were written from Zayden's. So Zayden is the companion to the protagonist. There are chapters that were written from his side, and then there's also chapters in Iron Flame written from his side as well. So now I'm knee deep in it, bruh. I'm halfway through it already. Okay, things are popping over with Violet, Soren, Gale. So if you guys are reading or have read the books, join us in the Patreon. We're going to be discussing. We're going to have a little book club. I'm going to be done with the book in I think 2 days over the weekend, and then I'm on to Onyx Storm.
That's the one that just came out this year.
Mm-hmm. And then I think from there we're going to get into A Court of Roses or something else that maybe the listeners will suggest. But it's bang. I don't like the book is funny, man. The first one I enjoyed. This one there's so much longing, Dan. There's so much bad communication. Like, fam. You know the most annoying thing about this book is she's complaining that this guy doesn't talk to me about stuff. He's not honest with me. But every time she asks him a question, guess what he is, Dan? He's honest about it.
So
now you're left asking. So
it
why
was
are you
written
this
from
guy?
a woman's perspective. I get it.
Fam, it's the most unnecessary argument that goes on for 300 bloody pages.
All right, Phil. As you know, we're getting into a public holiday. I will literally be reading the Fourth Wing during the public holiday. We'll discuss it in the Patreon group. If any of you have been reading it, let us know. If you want to join
when
for
you
these discussions.
do that, so before this, actually, another thing we'll discuss maybe in another episode is we were talking about how I use Notebook LM for like my knowledge and thing information, and we created a great thing for the podcast. Do you want to see something, Dan?
Mm-hmm.
Let me. I have to share my screen with you so you get it, and
yes,
you can relay this.
The listeners will love this.
To the listeners, what do you see here, Dan?
I see the Fourth Wing. What is that?
I've created a Fourth Wing mind map and compendium.
You use it as reference while you're reading which characters.
James and Fuad aren't doing this. James and Fuad aren't doing this.
Do they even understand the word compendium, Phil?
What?
I don't think they have this level of nuanced conversations.
That's right. Anywho, so yeah, guys, we'll get into that. So please do join us.
Look, we had a couple other talking points in the notes, Phil. But let's.
I think we might do a bonus episode just for the patrons. I'll just start up if I get a few moments. I'll just start up like a voice chat and just chat to the listeners about the other stuff as a sorry for missing the last week.
Absolutely, we must absolutely do that.
Yeah. We'll talk about Tyler's lawsuit. We'll talk about Tyler being nominated at the VMAs. We'll talk about the BET Awards being cancelled. We'll do a deep dive on Isha's album. You know what? We might even phone Isha. Just give him a quick call. I spoke to him last week. He was really happy.
Yeah, shout out to Isha. His album is actually really dope.
I was listening to it. Like, it's literally on high rotation. It's on high rotation in his house. I've listened to it a couple of times.
Very nice.
And then some listener feedback. There's some questions. Do you want to go back to some of the questions that we missed last time? I think we can do one question. Let's do one question. One question.
Mm-hmm.
Also, some listeners were coming back about the Superman feedback, and someone had the nerve to say that it was whack and they preferred Man of Steel. And that person needs to be put on a watch list because clearly you're a murderer.
This is what I have to say to that person, Phil.
Dude, when Doja Cat isn't being weird and showing feet in the chat, she's hilarious.
She's hilarious, man. Anyway, yeah. So let's hear this listener question. Are you zooming? Are you like?
Yeah, I'm so blind.
Phil, for those of you who can't see, Phil has really leaned into the screen. It's it's giving old person driver.
No, I'm trying to see, why can't I expand the image? That's the annoying thing. I'm trying to expand the image, you know?
Oh, is this one of those from like a couple of weeks ago that we didn't do when we had Tinto on?
Yeah. There's more that have come in. I just need to filter them. Oh yeah. We've been hit up with some very funny sponsor requests that I want you to.
Oh, snap. Yeah. Oh, crap. I keep needing to respond to, I don't know if it's from the same location. Listen, I know you listen to this podcast. I'm not ignoring you. It's so weird how it happens that your message always comes at a time that I can't respond. And then stuff happens and I forget about it. And yeah, so I promise you, I'm going to get to your message and we can get sponsorship on the podcast. Absolutely.
Here we go. We got a question here. Title, subject is coming home. Hope you guys are good. My name is T, and I'm a huge fan of the podcast. I'm a junior doctor here in London, and your show is my weekly connection to home. So thanks for that. I'm writing because I'm in a bit of a dilemma. I love you. I've been with my girlfriend for about 2 years. She's British, an amazing person, supportive, funny, intelligent, and we have a great relationship. The problem is the longer I'm with her, the more I feel this pull to move back to Zim in the next few years. I tried to explain it to her, the feeling of wanting to contribute back home, to be closer to my family, and just be home. She listens, but I don't think she truly gets it. To her, London is the center of the world, and she can't understand why anyone would choose to leave. She sees it as me choosing Zimbabwe over her, and she has a top-level view of Zim and thinks moving back to a failed state is a bad idea. So do I. So my question is, can a relationship like this really work long term? Is it possible to bridge the cultural gap when your fundamental life plans might be headed in opposite directions? Is it unfair for me to even hope she might consider a life in Harare?
Okay, so just so I understand the question here. He lives in London. He's dating someone in London. He's been feeling more and more about how he wants to move back home. And his girlfriend's like, what is wrong with you? Why would you want to do that? It sounds like you are choosing home over me. And he's like, no, it ain't like that. But now I'm wondering if we're going in the same direction. That's basically it, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
How do you say this delicately?
What's that clip? Man, I don't have enough context. Okay, I know what you're about to say, Phil. And I think this conversation deserves more nuance than the rough response that you're about to give. Listen, my brother. Again, very interesting. A recent conversation I was having with my wife about how sometimes that feeling of identity and the feeling of community and being connected to your home and the country that I'm from and the people that understand me and think the way I do and whatever like are around me and all of that, it's an extremely strong pull, especially if you are in a space where you're not easily managing to fit in, right? I mean, I don't know your exact personal, experience. So the person you're dating is British, right? I assume she's not Zimbabwean. Correct?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it's very difficult to explain what you're feeling to someone who won't get it. But at the same time, I feel like this is one of those things that I understand on an intellectual level, but I find very difficult to apply to real life, and I'll explain why. I'm mixed. I've lived most of my life in Zimbabwe. I do feel like this is my country and I belong here. But I've also experienced most of my life not having been immediately plugged into various communities. I understand on an intellectual level the call of being in a place but things are not okay, eh? If you're coming here nah. If you got a plan, maybe you're from a rich family, maybe you own, maybe Msangano, I don't know, maybe you own a bunch of properties. Cool. I can see it. I can see it. If you are just coming because you miss home, listen, brother, start with a 3-month sabbatical.
I was about to say, do you know what? Let me even just hop in to help you. My guy, this is what we do. Just take extended leave. 3 to 6 months. Don't leave your job. Just apply for extended leave. Come home. Give yourself the option. You know what? After 4 or 5 months, I've made it work. I can figure it out. Then by all means, make your move.
That's even
but
long.
Make sure your passport is red. No, we need to give them a white berth, because by month 2, he'll come around. We're not saying this to be negative. We're not saying this to be negative. We're just saying I've got so many examples. Granted, anecdotal information, but I know so many people that have left very good positions. I'm like, I should.
Okay, so by the way, that's not his question. His question is not about whether he should come or not, right? His question is...
So the question about your girlfriend is, sadly, you cannot control how other people respond to your words or your actions. So if that's how she feels, I think it's important that you take the time to understand where she's coming from, understand her concerns, her fears, her worries. Also explain your wants, your needs, what is driving you to make this move. And if you guys hopefully can find some common ground, perfect.
All I'm saying is don't break up because you might be back sooner than you expect. Firstly.
And the last thing you want to be is out in these streets. Let me not I have heard some horrifying things about the London streets. But you know what's worse than the London streets? The Harare streets. I don't know if you heard, they're using Mushonga Kuno.
People are being arrested for it. Okay, the other thing that I would say is regarding the relationship side of things. Maybe I would ask you, Phil. Let me pose it as a question. Do you think it's a valid reason to make, like, a relationship is a valid reason to make a huge life decision, like which country you're going to live in?
Yes. If the relationship matters to you, if you see a future with someone, then yes. Because how does the relationship work? What does it mean? That's definitely something that needs to be considered. Like careers, if someone is moving countries, that means one person is sacrificing their career, their family, their network over the other. Those are very important and serious things that need to be discussed.
Yeah, I would say, like, I've often seen conversations about moving countries for a man, I would never, or moving, whatever, for a girl, I would never move, or I'd never make a big life decision based on. And I agree with that in early stages of relationships, absolutely. But like, if we're talking about a long-term relationship and you're like literally considering, like, I do think it's as big of an impactful decision on your life as, in fact, if probably even bigger than many of the other decisions you'd make. So I would say it's not crazy for you to consider your living situation based on your relationship, depending on how serious it is and how long you've been together and all of that, right? So if you're thinking, I want to move to Zim, but my girlfriend doesn't, Does it automatically mean because we see things differently, we must live in different places? I don't necessarily think so. It could, depending on the stage of your relationship. But I don't think there's anything invalid about also thinking, even though I want to do this in terms of my living situation, because of my relationship, I will then choose to do this. I also think that's a very valid place to be in. I think only you can answer that question depending on how serious your relationship is. So long story short, don't rush to move here. Consider your options. Do a test run first. And don't rush also to break up. Do some fact finding. Have a conversation with your person and say, yo, look, we've been talking about this and I know we see things differently and I really want to consider your view and I'm generally sitting over here thinking that I don't want to make a decision that might end this relationship. But what I would like to do is just to test my theory. I want to spend a couple of months in Zim and see what it feels like. So I'm not saying I'm moving there. I'm not saying I'm breaking up with you. I just want to see what if I still feel the same after having stayed there for a couple of months. How do you feel about that? You take it from there. That's our official advice. The unofficial advice is save yourself, King. Don't come here.
Yeah, because it's happening. It's all happening here, my guy. It's all happening. Anyway, that was our podcast. We're going to have a little follow-up with the patrons. Thank you guys for joining us. Apologies for missing last week again, but we will try and be more regular. We'll keep you guys posted. We'll have a fantastic full review coming up soon. We're also going to discuss War of the Worlds. We might, I don't want to, because I actually wanted to discuss War of the Worlds. And I believe that they made it horrible so that people would watch it because it's horrible.
We could watch it together on Zoom.
That's the thing. I don't want to feed it. I don't want to watch that movie. It's terrible.
We pirate it, Phil. No problem.
It's still 90 minutes of my life I will not get back.
Sometimes there's value in watching something bad just for the purpose of having that experience, you know?
I could be reading more of Iron Man. Dude, that book is huge. I've been grinding, bruh. I wake up at 4 a.m. to read this book and I'm only halfway through. I'm so tired. I just want to finish this book.
I'm going to read it out loud to the missus. That's what I'm going to. Spice things up, you know, in the home day.
She'll be blushing. She will be blushing. Also, there's a lot of, you just need to read it. Dan, you need to read it. The way they kill kids in that book.
Oh my goodness. I hope you're speaking metaphorically in the sense of.
No, it's like Hunger Games, but medieval. It's wild. Anyway, that's it. Oh, by the way, shout out to everyone in Botswana who's been showing love and support. Shout out to everyone in Zimbabwe who's been showing love and support. Jordan Muzi is now number 1 in Botswana with No Time on 1 station and A Luta Continue another. Number 1 on 2 stations. Psst, what you know about that? If only a Zimbabwean radio station would show some support too. Ha! Anyway.
If only the person who was doing the radio plugging would actually, you know, plug. Instead of expecting others to take the initiative.
What do you mean? I plugged. I sent the files and I said plug.
That's all, eh? Anyway, we move. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, thank you very much for tuning in to another episode of Two Broke Twimbos. We back, baby. If you would like to support this podcast, please head on over to twobroke.com/donate, where we have made for your convenience a very simple link that you can click that will take you to our Patreon page, or you can just search for Two Broke Twimbos on Patreon. On there are several tiers available for your support of the podcast. The very lowest tier is only $5 per month, but if you find yourself having a stronger financial muscle, please select any of the other tiers. Whichever tier you select, we will greatly appreciate your support, and we will also be able to try give you some perks. We'll add you to the Patreon WhatsApp group where we have a lot of the conversations about some of the things that you hear on this podcast, plus more and extra. We have watch parties when it comes to certain movies. There's discussions that we have in there, and we also obviously take your recommendations for things to talk about on the podcast. We also try to give any exclusive things to that Patreon group. Frankly, there probably won't be anything that fully matches up what you pay us because we really appreciate your support. The real benefit is knowing that you're supporting this podcast and helping it to continue. So please consider going to twobroketumbos.com/donate. If money is tight right now, we also understand maybe you can support us by dropping a comment or a review on whatever app you use to listen to this podcast. That would be greatly appreciated. Or even just a simple retweet or repost or talking about us or taking a screenshot if you're listening and posting it to your Instagram story. Anything really to just spread the message out there about the podcast. Yeah, on that note, guys, thank you very much. We'll be back again next week, God willing. And until then, we'll catch you in the next one. We out.